Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Just closing the loop on the sanctity of life issue. Got this winnable war moment. I don't want us to miss that there are winnable war moments. It is a culture war. We have no moral superiority over Hitler, and we want to work to bring this tragic, horrible, abominable practice of abortion to an end in America. But it is interesting. Right now, the United States is we're in the top 4% of the most permissive abortion policies in the world. In other words, we have the seventh, there's 198 nations in the world. We have the seventh most liberal abortion policies in the world. The norm among countries that permit abortions is that they prohibit it after 20 weeks of gestation. In America, it's legal after 20 weeks of gestation. States can limit it, and that's what they are doing. And elective abortions in countries around the world that actually allow abortion typically are very commonly limited to 12 weeks. So we're the worst. We're among the 4%, the top 4% of the worst countries in the world for sanctity of life policy. But we are winning the war for the hearts and minds of the American people. And that's what I want you to understand. This is a winnable war. We've won an important victory in Mississippi. The sanctity of life for babies is now protected after 20 weeks of gestation. And this piece on heritage.org reminds us that 2/3 of Americans believe that late-term abortion should generally be illegal. 2/3 believe that what the state of Mississippi did was exactly right. This isn't some kind of draconian, lunatic, right-wing fringe move. This is something that 2/3 of the American people, including 60% of women, believe is the right move. And generally speaking, 80% of the public opposes abortions in the third trimester. That would be after about 24, 25 weeks. That's 80%. So we are winning the war for the hearts and minds of the American people. You might have been following this story about Phil McAleer and Ann McElhaney. They are filmmakers that have been on this program before. They've done some great documentaries on fracking, documentaries on the hyper scam of global warming. They want to make a movie about Kermit Gosnell. Speaking of an abomination, this was the guy that babies would be born alive in his clinic. They would be born alive. They're babies. Their bodies are completely separate from the wombs of the mother. He would take a pair of scissors. And I just let me just give a quick content warning here to adults that maybe have tender young ears within hearing. You may want to switch channels here for just the next couple of minutes. But this Gosnell, babies would be born. They're American citizens. They're live babies. They're infants. Their bodies, you can't even use the justification that a woman ought to have a right to do what she wants with her own body because the body of the baby is now completely separate from the body of the mother. And he would take a pair of scissors and he would snip their spinal columns. Now, this is internal decapitation. Their head now is no longer connected through the nervous system to the rest of the body. It's just internal decapitation. And he would do that routinely. Now, he's been sent away to prison for the rest of his life. One of the things he would do is he would cut the feet off of babies, and he would store them in jars. Now, what Phil McAleer and Ann McElhaney want to do is they want to make a movie about this guy as the worst serial murderer in history. And so they went to an outfit called Kickstarter, which is a place where you can go and get crowdfunding. You go to this website at Kickstarter. It's for the making of movies. You put your project up there on their website. Maybe you put a trailer up there about what you want to do, and then people can contribute money to this Kickstarter website so you can fund your movie. And Phil McAleer and Ann McElhaney, I believe, have funded one of their movies this way. So they wanted to put their Gosnell movie up. They did, and the Kickstarter people threw them off. Said it's just too graphic, despite the fact they've got all kinds of other movies, torture movies. They will allow people to raise money for pornographic movies, but they said, no, your movie about Gosnell, that's too graphic. We're kicking you off. So they went to a different similar site called Indiegogo, and they've raised so far over $1 million. Now they're halfway to their goal. They got to get, I think they got to get to 2 million in order for the project, for them to get the money. The way it works is people donate to Indiegogo. The producers like Phil McAleer and Ann McElhaney, they set a goal. We want to raise this much money. If they raise the goal, if that much money is actually contributed, then it is sent to them so they can make the movie. If they don't reach the goal, what happens is Indiegogo hangs on to all the money that are given by the donors, the investors. If they don't make the goal, then Indiegogo returns all the money to the investors. And so there's no money that goes to the producers. I think it's a good idea because it's a protection from fraud and rip-off and all that kind of stuff. But they got to get to their goal. And so we think this is a story that needs to be told. And so you might want to go to Indiegogo and take a look at it. But this is a winnable war moment because they've already raised $1 million. Kickstarter says, get out of here. We don't want anything to do with your movie about the worst serial murder in history. They go to Indiegogo, have already raised over $1 million, over halfway to their goal. So, winnable war moment on the Gosnell movie. In fact, the American people, obviously, by their support, say they want this story to be told. And then we have Mississippi protecting sanctity of life after 20 weeks of gestation. Now, I want to go to this Cliven Bundy issue. If you've been watching the news today, everything is all about what Cliven Bundy said about blacks, the black community. He used the word Negro to refer to them, which is a dated term, but this was a term that people in the black community routinely used until they decided it was out of favor and they want to substitute it for African American. Now a lot of folks in the black community say we don't want to be called African American. If you're going to call us anything, just call us blacks. So anyway, the term of choice changes over time, and so he used this sort of dated word. But he has been accused of being this rabid racist. And the media has breathlessly gone around to every Republican leader to get them to disavow Cliven Bundy, to completely separate themselves from his effort to protect his cattle and his ranching operation in Nevada, which, by the way, the BLM, we now know today that the BLM has set aside 50 million acres in Nevada for solar energy, and the land that they have set aside includes Cliven Bundy's ranch. So everything we said is absolutely true. The BLM has designated 50 million acres in Nevada for solar development, including, and included in that allotment is the Bundy Ranch. And remember, Rory Reid, Harry Reid's son, he's got a big-time lobbying contract with a solar firm from China. They're looking for a whole bunch of turf to be able to put a solar farm up. And apparently they want to get Cliven Bundy and his cattle out of the way so they can move forward with that project on his land if that's where they choose to put it. Now, I want you to listen to the entire, this is just we got this late, so it's just an audio bite. I don't have video to go with this. But here is Cliven Bundy. Here's the complete context of his remarks talking to a reporter from the New York Times. By the way, the segment after this, he speaks very complimentary of Hispanic immigrants and how hard they work and how he's been so impressed with the quality of their family life, unlike the family life of a lot of whites that he sees. So very complimentary of Hispanic immigrants, says, look, we need them here to work and all that kind of stuff. I don't even think I agree with him, but he apparently is a supporter of illegal immigration. Cliven Bundy sounds that way to me, so the liberals ought to love this guy. But listen to what he had to say. He had one segment in here which has got him in all this hot water, but the media is not including the conclusion of his remarks, how he winds up where he makes it very, very clear what his point is. And it turns out his point is exactly the same as the Democratic Senator Patrick Moynihan. I'll explain that in a second. Let's listen to Cliven Bundy on the black family.
I want to tell you one more thing I know about the Negro. When I go through Las Vegas, North Las Vegas, and I would see these little government houses, and in front of that government house, the door was usually open, and the older people and the kids, and there's always at least a half a dozen people sitting on the porch. They didn't have nothing to do. They didn't have nothing for their kids to do. They didn't have nothing for their young girls to do. And because they were basically on government subsidy, and so now what do? They abort their young children. They put their young men in jail because they never learned how to pick cotton. And I've often wondered, are they better off as slaves, picking cotton, having family life and doing things, or are they better off under government subsidy?
Transfer. They just transferred at that time.
Yeah, they didn't get no more freedom. They got less freedom.
And do we not have the very end of that? Is that all we got? Okay,
Yeah.
because what he said at the very end of it, he's talking again about the devastation in the black community, and he says that's all government. Talking about the way the black family has been completely destroyed, completely devastated, completely torn apart, completely ripped up, and he said that's all government. Now, Bundy never said we ought to go back to slavery. Bundy never said that's the solution to this problem. He just said, look, take a look at the black families today. The ones I've seen with my own eyes, they're miserable. There's complete family breakdown. You have men that are either absent or they're unemployed. This is a horrible situation that the black community finds itself in. And he says the government has done this to them. It's all government. Now, if you remember, Daniel Patrick Moynihan is a Democrat senator from New York, and he was the first one. He made this observation back in the 60s. He's a Democrat. He is a liberal. And he said in the 1960s, government welfare is destroying the black family. This is exactly Cliven Bundy's point. His point was, you look at the devastation in the black community, what's done that? What's responsible for that? Why, when you look at the black community today, do you have to wonder, do you have to ask yourself the question how this compares to what life might have been like for them and for the black family under slavery? Why does that question even come into your mind? Because government is destroying the black family. Government welfare is destroying the black family. It's making husbands irrelevant. It's making fathers irrelevant. The government saying to young women, you don't need husband to provide for you. The government will do that for you. He doesn't need a job. If he doesn't have a job or doesn't want to work, we'll take care of you. Your kids don't need a father. The government will be your kid's daddy. And it's wiping out the black family. This is exactly what Cliven Bundy was saying exactly the same thing that Daniel Patrick Moynihan was saying 40 or 50 years ago. So let's just be very clear about this. I mean, I wouldn't put things the way Cliven Bundy did, but Cliven Bundy was not saying we ought to go back to slavery. Cliven Bundy's point is that government welfare is destroying the black family. So he agrees with Daniel Patrick Moynihan, and Daniel Patrick Moynihan agrees with Cliven Bundy. Government welfare is destroying the black family. Back in 2.
Few words